All right, Robert Drury back again on my quest to get to 2200. I am going to do something a little different this game. I'm not going to be recording this live. This is a game I had played earlier tonight. And the reason I'm going over this game is I very rarely get a chance to play a National Master. So I wanted to take an opportunity to go over the game and see. Basically, can the Hippo stand up against a person who is a national master? So, well, let's see how this game goes. My opponent came in at 2271. I looked him up, and looks like he's been a national master since 2017. And from what I can tell, he's about 32, 33 years old. So I've got about 30 years on him, almost 30 years on him. And I'm 150 something points lower in my online rating. And this game is played with a 15-minute time control with 10-second increments. All right, so let's get started. I played B3, which is technically Nimzo Larson, and he comes out and he's playing B6. So he's playing symmetrical to me. And we just continue. Now I play D3, and I was wondering if he's just going to copy me. I've seen this before where if I'm playing an Nimzo Larson, my opponent just copies. But he varies here. And I continue with my knight out. Now, when they put a bishop here, I've got to be patient on pushing this pawn and putting the bishop out. Because a lot of times, if you get impatient, you may just go ahead and put a knight here, put a bishop out here, and forget about the Hippo. But I'm going to be patient, and he plays this knight around. And when I say patient, before I'll need to get the knight over here, and whenever he blocks, then I will push. So, give you an example. Hold on, I'll go back here. All right, so I have to move the pawn up, put a knight here, and then if he ever blocks with either a pawn or his knight, or even a pawn here, I can push this pawn. All right, so let's continue. I play my E3 pawn. He brings his bishop to E7, and my knight comes around, and now I'm just waiting for him to push here, and I will push and bring the bishop out. Okay, he castles, and I just play the H pawn up, just kind of going getting the Hippo set up, also keeping the knight out of here. And he brings his C pawn up, and here if you can see the valuation, it's a minus 0.73, so it likes black. And of course that's changed. I've got the evaluation on I think a 30-second. It's looking at it for 30 seconds for each move. All right, so I continue. I've put my other pawn up. So I've got my pawn set up for a full Hippo. Now I need this pawn. And I also need a bishop here. Okay, so now he plays the pawn. And generally they're going to do that. They'll eventually block their bishop. So now I can push the pawn, and if he pushes forward, I will just push my pawn, and I will get the locked position here, which I normally get in other move orders. Usually I'll get maybe a pawn here, and then when he pushes, I'll lock. All right, so he pushed this pawn, so there's the E4 locked position. He brings his other knight around, and this is what I'm talking about. Normally, I'll get this, and it'll be locked, but normally the bishop is over here, which prevents me from putting a knight here because he just snaps it off. It doesn't prevent it, it just creates an issue. Here, I could put a knight here without worrying about the bishop. Not that I'm going to do that, but that's just a possibility. All right, bring my bishop up, and he brings his pawn up, and he's most likely going to push here. I'll go ahead and castle. And now he drops back. When he dropped back, I figured, all right, he's going to do this. He's going to push his pawn. And now the engine actually likes the F pawn move. I didn't like the fact of him pushing here. So the engine gives the actually gives bishop to C1 at a minus 0.46. The F4 move at a minus 4.2. So the engine likes this move. However, I played my G4 pawn, and my whole purpose here was I just wanted to keep him from pushing. Now, what this does, or what it prevents, is now it makes it a lot harder for me to push this pawn, because, I mean, he could put a pawn here, and now it's hard to push the pawn. It's like I need levers, and by pushing this, I prevent a lever. One of my friends from the chess club, he looked over my game, and he thought this was a horrendous move. And I told him it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best move, but my intent was to just try to clamp down on the F5 square. And here the engine likes black. It's minus 0.75. All right, so he brings this knight around. And now eventually I want to bring this bishop here and get it on this diagonal. I would like to eventually be able to push this. Maybe a knight here, knight in here. The other knight comes around. But here the engine really prefers black. And I bring my knight out, and I'm planning on coming here and just getting in on that square. And if he ever pushes this pawn, then I will have my knight locked in there. But now the engine just basically says black is much better. I wouldn't say much better, but he's got an advantage. All right, he brings this bishop down. Now he's going to target this. Now I can't push here. I can bring my knight to here and hit on the bishop, though. And that's what I do. And he just plops this bishop right in here. Now, if he takes here, I take back, and I think I'm all right with that, because I've got it'd be hard for him to get into my king. I can tuck my king here and hide behind the 3 pawns. The bishop here is just, it's a bad bishop. It does serve a purpose as a defensive purpose at this moment. All right, so I come out, and I'm gonna hit the bishop. And if he does here, if he pushes here, I don't want to hit it, because then he just takes with the knight. He's got the pawn buried deeper in my position. I'm sorry, he takes with the pawn. He's got it in my position. All right, like for instance, all right, if he comes here, I take. I mean, he can come here, and it just doesn't look good. All right, so and he puts his pawn there, and I don't want to take. Actually, the engine says taking's not that bad. Knight to F, G takes, and it's only a minus 0.28. Engine also likes to just ignore it and just go on with C3. However, bring my bishop down. Let's see, was the bishop move? Bishop move wasn't in there. Bishop move was not in the top 4 choices. If I bring my bishop down, I'm like, all right, well, maybe we can trade and get it out of there. He ignores it, because he would prefer me taking. Actually, here it says if I take, he takes back with G, and it's basically even. However, I decided to bring my bishop up, with the possibility of maybe my queen coming here, and just kind of lining up on here. And I was sitting there thinking, well, I can bring my queen here, then I can take here. I think he takes back, but then I realized, wait a second, if I do that, he just takes with this queen. Well, wait a second. Yeah, just takes with his queen. Doesn't help me at all. All right, so he moves his he moves his pawn up. Once again, the engine likes c3, knight to f4. I decide to reroute my knight back to this square. Not a particular fan of the engine. If he takes here, I'm taking back with the pawn. Then I can always just tuck my king like I talked about. And then this file is semi-open. And actually the engine says bishop takes g is the best move for black, and he maintains a 0.82 advantage. All right, so, but he drops back because now he's like, all right, well, if I come in here, he could take. Okay, once again, the engine says just go back here, but I went ahead and plopped it in there anyway. All right, if he wants to take, I'm like, if he wants to take, and I'll take back this way. Well, I was thinking I'll take this way, then this kind of opens up. But then I got to look, I'm thinking, well, what if I take this way? If I take this way, and that's actually the way the engine wants it to take, is it wants you to take back this way. But I was thinking all right, if he takes, I take this way, and now maybe I can move over, try to get a piece over here, and try to get up on this diagonal. Of course, I'd have to push this pawn to open it. All right, so he brings this rook over. He's planning pushing here. Now here, I thought about moving a bishop to here, try to exploit the pin, but then I thought, well, wait a second. If he pushes, I will just put a bishop here, and now I've got a pin on that knight. Okay, but I bring my rook over first because, and I can't remember what exactly I was thinking here, but I brought my rook over thinking, all right, if he takes, I could take. He takes back. Then I can go here. Plus, I got my rook on a open file. And he brings this bishop down. And now the engine says bishop takes or knight takes. And here, what did I do? I just played rook to e1, and that was just, it's just, once again, it's a kind of a waiting mood. I'm waiting for him to push here, and it's still at a 0.49 advantage for black. However, he's starting to use some time. He's down to 3:39, and I've still got 10 minutes on my clock. And that's one of the things with the Hippo. If you know the Hippo, you tend to spend less time going through your moves than your opponent. All right, so he pushes. And he makes that push. Now, the engine prefers just take. Queen takes. You're going to come in here. And now you're going to win the exchange. However, and it also says bishop to b4 first. And I took bishop to b4. And this lets him the opportunity to take here. Then I take here. And that's what happened. Let's see, what are the other choices? All right, let's say he takes here. I take back. And I don't know, let's say that he comes in here, just does something non-committal. And I just take. Okay, but he went ahead, he didn't like the pressure, so he took. I took the rook, and now I've got the exchange. He drops back, and actually I get the exchange, and in return he gets a pawn out of it. All right, so I take, he takes back, and now what do? Engine says D takes, B takes, and bishop to f1. I don't know if I would ever consider bishop to f1 and coming back around. But I bring my rook over because I don't want him to take the pawn because he's lined up against, he's lined up against the pawn. And it was kind of a moot point because, all right, let's just say I bring my bishop down. He takes the pawn. I just come over here and I would win his bishop. So the pawn is really not in danger. I did not identify that. And I move my rook back over. And once again, if you see the clock here, he's down to a minute, and I've still got 8 minutes on my clock. Now he pushes. All right, so now I thought about b4, but I didn't want to let his knight get into here. Technically, his knight gets into here. He can come to here, but I mean, what's he really accomplished? I can just move my queen out of the way. All right, so let's see where. In here, I move my king over. I'm planning on coming this way, moving the rook here, and pushing the h3 pawn. Now, and this is another conversation I had with a friend of mine from the chess club. He just thought this was a horrible move. I didn't think it was that bad because I figured I'd come in here. He's not really going to be hit because, I mean, the bishop is kind of blocked out. And then I can move a rook over and open up the h-file. My friend thought it was a horrible move. The engine does not like it at all. Matter of fact, the engine actually says, just push b4. Push b4. Knight comes down to h2. And that's what the friend of mine from the chess club said, just knight to h2. However, I did not play the best move. I played my king over. And let's go back a second. So my problem here with, if I come here, I'm like, how am I ever going to make any progress to be able to win this game? I'm just kind of locked in. Locked. My position is closed out, and I just don't have a lot of play. All right, so I decided to come over. And he brings his king over. He's just kind of removing this king from the area. And I come up into e2 with the intent of bringing the rook over. And at this point, he brings this rook over. He sees what I'm doing. And rook to h1 is what the engine calls for. But I played rook to, I'm sorry, it called for rook g1. I played rook to h1, intending to push. And he drops his bishop back. Because now, all right, if I push, he said, fine, I'll just take it. So now I've got to rethink this. Engine says just king to f1. And I don't know. King to f1, and he goes h5. Then I take. All right, I drop back. And he pushes. He pushes, and I'm like, okay, I'm kind of got myself into a bind. I put my bishop here. That's what I do. He takes, and now I can't take like this because he takes, I push here, and he takes. So I take with VH because now if he takes the rook, I will take back with my bishop. And then if he takes the pawn, I will bring my bishop back up. And at that point, I'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he will, I'll be able to exchange, but he'll have an extra pawn. Engine says it's black's winning. It's minus 0.72. He takes, now I take, and there it comes. And now, if I push the pawn, now all of a sudden, I'm running out of squares for the knight and the bishop because at that point, I've only got this square for both of them. So what I did was I pushed the pawn. All right, if he wants to trade, we will trade. And it's minus 0.14. And what he does, he backs out. And now I bring my knight to g2, which allows him to push his pawn and win the bishop. And when I played knight to g2, I knew that he could push, but I thought, well, I come in here, take, and I can get my rook and my queen over here to these two open files. And I, honestly, at the time I played it, I didn't know if it'd be good or bad. But actually, the engine actually likes knight to g2. And he pushes. he pushes. But the problem is he pushes, it gives me an advantage. I'm given the, I'm basically going to end up a rook versus these two pieces. But when you look at it, the bishop's got the white diagonal here. The knight can't come here, can't come here. If he gets here, he's just kind of not hitting on anything. So the knight's really not doing a whole lot. All right, I took. He took back, and I took, and there's where we are. So at this point, we are virtually even, and he's still in time trouble, and I give him a check. Now, queen to h1 was a better move because then my rook can come over with the check, and both of them get open files. That's not what I played. Brought my queen over, and he backs out. Or he just backs down. Now what I do? Come in here. He kicked me out. I just come over here. But what I did was I bring my queen over to h2. Should have brought it over to the h file to start with. The engine actually says black is winning here, minus 1.24. But that just goes to show you how, if I come here to start with, if I come here to start with, it's virtually even. If I pick the wrong square, it gives black an advantage. All right, so here it's pretty good advantage black. He just needs to get his two minor pieces coordinated into the game. And there comes the knight. He's trying to come in here. And I give him a check. Now he blocks. All right, now the bishop is blocked and it's not in the game. If he had came here, I would give him a check and probably try to get the queens off the board, then try to get my rook into the game after I take this pawn. All right, so all right, where we at? Let's go back. All right, so now I'll bring my rook over. So now I'm hitting him twice. He's got to defend. Queen's got to defend, but instead he's going to give me a check first. And now I was looking, all right, I take here, and I was thinking, all right, he comes here, and he's forking, but my rook guards it. So I can take, and now he moves his queen over, and now the engine says king to f5, and I go king to f5. He can just kick me out. All right, but I give him a check. He moves his king over, and now I bring my rook in, and here, if I play my queen here, and he comes back, no, he can't come back here. He brings his king over. Let's say, for instance, he brings his king over. Hold on, it's queen d6. It's my move, right? I come here. He brings his king over, and eventually I can slide down this way and then come in behind him. And let's see. But I drop back. I drop back because I think I'll just push this pawn. It gives up all the advantage because now it's back to even. He plays this pawn, and now it's actually queen to h8 is much worse. It's 3.70 because now he's got to bring his king over, king to f8, and I can push f4 and kick the knight out. But I push f4 first, and the knight takes. The knight takes. So I'm like, he's going to sack his knight. I thought, if I take, then he pushes, and I can bring my rook over here. But then he takes here. And what I do? Give him a check? I don't know. It gets a little complicated. And I saw, wait a second, I come here with a check. I can take this, check, then take. I'm sitting there thinking, all right, I can come here with the check. And I'm thinking, all right, so if he moves up here, I can take and then maybe hit this or come back and guard the square. All right, and the engine says queen to h5 is plus 0.95, but queen to h8 is plus almost 6. Then he goes king over, and then I can just back my rook out and basically work on taking a few things. All right, so let's go queen. He goes over. I can, if I drop over this way, now I'm also threatening to drop in behind him. All right, I'll give him a check though. I'll go the other route. And he moves this bishop down. I thought he'd been better off moving his king, but he moved his bishop down. And let's see, I'll give him another check. And I missed the fact that he could just move his king here. And now if I take, he takes, and it's not good. But I can take here, then he takes, now I can take. And that would leave me up a pawn in the end game. All right, and that's the route I go. And I take, and he comes right there. I just move my, in here, I can just move my king over. And if he takes, I can take here and trade the H pawn for a center pawn. I could go queen to c4, king to g7, and then b4. He takes, I take, and I got a pass pawn. I've got a better position right now. I'm not 100% sure if he can hold, but he may be able to get a draw out of this. Okay, but I pushed the pawn up to protect it and dropped some of my advantage. The advantage is almost even now. He drops back, and I am slowly losing any advantage, and it's starting to look like this game could be a draw. I come over. He gives me a check, and I come back, and now he gives me another check. Now, hold on. Okay. Now, I suppose he can't. He's got to come here to give me a check. All right, I drop down, and I'm dropped down to here. I did not want to come to F3 because I didn't want him to give me another check. All right, so he drops down, and now I'm getting the advantage back because I can take. He takes. I'm going to walk my king over. Gives me a check. Now my king is connected to my pawn, and it's also attacking here. However, the engine says just go ahead and put your queen here and see if we can get it traded off. And it's 3.28. It's not what I played. I played my king over, and now he gives me a check. All right, bring my king up, and now I'm thinking, all right, he takes, I'm going to take here. And I'm up 1.01 on that method. He takes, and I'm thinking I take here, but I'm not up 1-0 if I take there because he's got this. What I have to play is the queen right here, and then take the pawn off the board. That's not what I played. I took. Now, he takes with check. He's got a pass pawn. Says it's even. But I'm sitting there thinking, if he takes the pawn, I'm going to have a hard time trying to work this out to get that pawn stopped. At this point, I'm thinking, oh, I'm in trouble. He's actually picked up some time. He's back up to a minute on his time, and I'm at 2:39. So the time is not as big of an issue. But he gives me a check. And now my queen comes over. My queen is guarding the pawn. It's guarding this pawn and asking him, do you want to trade? He does not. Now he can come right in here. All right. I give him a check, though. He drops back. And now I can bring my queen up here, give him another check. He drops back. And now I can bring my pawn here, or my king here. And if he comes in here, I can just drop it here. And if he would have came into this square, I would just drop here. And then once he moved away, I'd bring my queen down here and take this. All right, so he doesn't do that. So I bring my queen. He drops back. And now let's trade queens. He doesn't want to trade queens, but here I can get a pass pawn. I push it. He takes. I take. I've got a pass pawn. And for all intents and purposes, I should win this game. But as we all know, there's always the potential to lose the game or draw the game. All right, I take. He is not going to get that queen off the board. He knows that he'll lose if he does. I block. He's going to just give me a check. And now he comes in behind me. All right, it's going to come in here. Could have played my queen right here. Queen to c6. And now I've got this square, and this pawn protected, and I can start pushing. The question is how do I dislodge this queen? But I move my pawn up, and now he can go queen to a8. And I drop back. And he goes rook to b7, but he just played a keen move. And I brought my queen over, and now he doesn't have this, but he still has this. So basically, queen to c6 was a better choice. And now I'm like, trade, no. Now I move my king up, and I'm going to start pushing this pawn. He brings his queen over, but that was a fatal mistake because now I can get the queens off the board, which is what I do. And I also calculated that once he takes back and I take, my king gets in time to protect the pawn. He takes. Okay, if he would have brought his king over, I bring my king, and then he brings it, and I bring it, and I can start walking it in. All right, but he's like, all right, I'm going to see if I can get a queen. But he's too slow. Now he brings his king over, but my king is able to meet. And now I just queen, and he resigned. So there we are. We've found out that you play the Hippo. You do have the potential to beat a national master. So with that, my rating jumped up to 21.25, and I will see you on the next video.